Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today, my guest is Jeremy Britton, who's the CFO of Boston Trading. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
So, Jeremy, what made you decide to kind of get into the finance field?
I think, I grew up one of 6 children on one income. And there was a lot of things that we didn't have. And there was a lot of things that I wanted to have. And so obviously, as soon as I was able to, I wanted to start working. Like I started babysitting the neighbors' kids when I was 13 or 14. When I was 14 and a half, I started flipping burgers at McDonald's. And there's always something else to do. And like I could get into little part-time sales jobs and things like that. And you make more money in sales than you do flipping burgers. And it's easier work because you're not sweating over a grill. And someone said to me when I was actually in the library back in the olden days before the internet, I was in the library and I was like picking up sales books and things like this. And there was a guy there who was doing a similar thing. And I was probably, 18, 19. And he was probably about 40 or 50. So he looked old and experienced to me. And he said, I don't know what you're selling, but if you want to get into selling something that you can make billions in, get into finance. I said, what do you mean? And he said, look, sooner or later, someone will buy 2 or 3 cars, they'll have enough cars. They'll buy 5 or 6 houses, they'll have enough houses. But if you're looking after their money, they can never have enough money. Every millionaire wants to be a billionaire. Every billionaire wants to be a centibillionaire. And I was like, okay. And I could have the same client for years and years and years. And that sort of appealed to me too, rather than just selling something to someone and then they disappear and you never see them again. You've got to go and find another customer. So I started to look into it. And I accidentally fell into financial planning while I was trying out for a Hollywood movie role. So it's an interesting story. That story that I can still see that guy in the little aisle of the library. That always stuck with me. Like that's the ultimate thing to sell, is something that people can never have enough of.
That's pretty good advice, especially at that age. So. So you got into doing the financial planning and things like that. How did that part of your career start out?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, again, like I grew up sort of, my mum says I'm not allowed to say we grew up poor. So let's just say we grew up middle class, 6 kids, 1 income, you do the math. Right. And one thing I really liked was comics. And I'm a big fan of the Phantom comics, because he doesn't have any magical powers. The Phantom's kind of like Batman. He's just one guy who can do his thing. And I had heard a rumor, this was way back before the Batman movies and things like this, that someone was actually planning on making a Phantom movie. And I heard about this guy. I got in touch with this guy and he just said, yeah, I'm a big fan. I want to make this movie. And I've got some ideas about turning a comic book into a movie, which has never been done before at that stage, except for the Superman movies in the 70s. And so I started chatting with this guy. Again, before the internet, we were actually sending letters to each other. And I just knew that he was a fan. He was a few years older than me. And we shared the love of comics, and he had a similar sense of humor to me. And we became like pen pals, and lasted for maybe 2-3 years that we actually chatted. And to me, he was just a fun guy. He was an older guy. He had some ideas. And when I sort of got down to talking to him about making the movie, and he said, like, Paramount's rejected it, Warner Brothers has rejected it. They've said no one's going to go and see a movie about a comic book. Particularly it's not Superman. It's a hero that a lot of people hadn't heard of. And so he said, I'm just going to make it myself. I went, what do you mean? He said, well, come and see me. I'm hiring a script writer. I'm putting in the money myself. And like at that stage, I was 19 or 20 at university. I was working out every day. So I was, big and buff and fit and young, and I was unstoppable.
Right.
And he actually put down $30 million to start off the budget of this movie, to get the scriptwriter to start the pre-screening. He said, I'm going to cast you in the role because you're my friend and I can do that because I'm the producer. And no one's ever heard of you, which will create a bit of a buzz because no one's ever heard of you before. You haven't been in any other movies. And then he said, I'll surround you with all these other stars that'll bring in people, but then there'll be a bit of buzz around who's this young guy. And I didn't realize that he actually had money. Like, I didn't realize he was a guy who could whack $30 million down on the table. Right. I just thought he was a normal guy, like the guy who's, the butcher or the greengrocer or, right, or whatever down the corner who owned his business. And as it turned out, by the time he started spending the money and getting the scriptwriter and getting all this stuff up, Warner Brothers and I think it was Paramount actually came around and said, we didn't realize you were serious. We thought you were just messing around. Now that you've sort of started and halfway through, we want to get involved. However, we have some conditions. And one of the conditions is get rid of Jeremy and put in Billy Zane, because Billy Zane was a known actor at the time.
Right.
And I was obviously upset that I got booted out of my, my passion project with my friend. And he said, look, really sorry, but, love you to death. Come and work for me in my business. It just happens to be financial planning. And I went, okay, cool. And we'd formed a relationship, and he knew I was tenacious as he was. We just kept pursuing this passion project. So he said, you pursue your clients like that, pursue your business like that, never, ever give up. You'll do well. So yeah, I dropped out of university, started my first financial planning business when I was 19 under his tutelage. And started another 6 or 7 financial planning businesses over the next 20 odd years. And never got to be a Hollywood actor, but it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Hollywood would have chewed me up.
Right. Yeah, you may be doing better now than if you kept doing the acting. That's for sure.
Yeah, I got more hair than Billy Zane. So.
True. So the clients that you're dealing with over the years and doing your financial planning and stuff like that, what were some of the biggest fears that they had, and how'd you help them overcome these fears?
Most people have the fear, and it's mostly unspoken fears because they don't want to talk about things. Most clients don't want to admit the level of knowledge that they have or don't have. Mm-hmm. Most people, they've heard of the stock market, but they don't understand how it works. They just know on the news that they talk about when it goes down and like $800 billion was wiped off the market, and stock market's really scary. Like, you got to understand that when that $800 billion is wiped off, it's not wiped off. It doesn't disappear. Right. It just moves from there to somewhere else. So if you've got stocks and you've got bonds and you've got property and you've got something else, then you're okay. And clients also have the fear, and again, it's one that we don't like to talk about, but what happens if I die before I get to retirement age and leave a debt for my family and the bank takes the house? Or what happens, even worst case scenario, what happens if I don't die? What happens if I live to be 93, 97, 106 years old, right, and I don't have enough money to take care of myself in those later years because I might need more medical attention, or just the fact that I only worked for 40 or 50 years and I've got to live for more than 50 years without that money. So there's sort of these unspoken things that we really have to address. And even just getting sick. That's not necessarily someone dies before they finish working or retiring. It's like, what if you get sick and you have to take 6 months off work? Right. Who's going to take care of you? How's the bills going to get paid? That sort of stuff. So there's a few sort of basic things that people don't like to talk about that you need to address. And then ongoing education is just one of those things. And you don't expect all your clients to become an expert. You don't expect them to become qualified. Good luck to them if they do. Right. But give them a basic understanding so they can actually understand why you do what you do. Like, I know how to mow my own lawn. I know how to change my own oil in my engine of my car. I just don't want to. Right. So, but if I was stuck in an emergency and I had to, because my mechanic was hit by a truck or whatever, I could do it. And if I hire someone to do it, I'll be able to tell when they're doing it wrong or if they're overcharging me or whatever. So if my clients have a basic understanding of why I do what I do, then they can keep me honest, number one, And they can also provide suggestions. And my clients come to me all the time and say, hey, have you heard about this stock? Have you heard about this company? And such has just invented this new process of, you know, putting glass on the phone cover, but the glass has the prescription from your glasses. So you can take your glasses off and you can still read your phone. I'm like, hey, I've never heard of that. That's really great. You know?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Educating the clients, and they will then educate you.
Right. What are, you know, some of the mistakes that you see that these clients are making?
So many. And I guess I'm talking about crypto as well as stocks.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, bonds are one of those things, like, you know where they come from, you know what they're backed by. But oftentimes a client will come in and they say, oh, you know, my brother-in-law's just started a winery and he wants me to invest money into this winery. Sure, what does your brother-in-law do? Oh, he's got a winery. Yeah, but what did he do before that? Oh, he was a school teacher, or he was an astrophysicist, or whatever.
Right.
He doesn't know anything about wine. You know, he's just become redundant in his job. He's been given a big amount of money, and now he's going to go and follow his passion project. But if he doesn't know anything about what he's doing, that business is going to fail. And there's clients who come in and go, oh, so-and-so's just discovered a big lithium deposit or a big gold deposit. I want to invest in this mining stock. Like, okay, but you're investing after the news has come out. The price has already taken off.
Mm-hmm.
And if they dig this thing up and there's not much underneath it, then the stock is going to go down very rapidly. So a lot of people, because they're watching the news, they're watching the social media, traditional media, and they're picking up these things a lot of times after the event. And we really want to get in before the event.
Right.
So wouldn't you have liked to know that, you know, just when Nokia was the #1 phone company in the world, wouldn't you have loved to know that Apple's going to come out with something that's just going to completely bury everybody else?
Right.
You know? So trying to get the inside information, and funnily enough, a lot of it is actually available. It's just not where you think it is.
Gotcha. So, you know, you mentioned cryptocurrency. How do you see that now currently playing into someone's portfolio?
Well, most of the advisors, like, I think the US is a bit ahead of Australia as far as adoption. India is way ahead of both countries. I think 1 in 3 people in India have a crypto wallet. But realistically, you know, from my point of view, crypto, when I first looked at it, it's like, crypto is an unregulated stock market.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when 9/11 happened and airline stocks and travel stocks dropped by 20 or 30%, they closed the markets and said, okay, no trading for 4 days till everybody grieves, everybody go home, relax, take a few breaths, and then come back. So we don't panic the market and we don't oversell. And similarly, when we're feeling enthusiastic and that you know, the tech stocks were going up in the late 90s, you know, and if a stock went up 30, 40, 50%, the market could just say, hang on, stop. We're going to stop trading on that one and come back again tomorrow. But crypto is just running unregulated 24/7. You know, there's no end to the trading day. There's no end to the people who can just say whatever they like. We've just discovered a new thing. We're all going to go to Mars and dig up gold and be billionaires or whatever. People can lie through their teeth and there's no one to stop it. So in crypto, you've got to be really careful. Cointelegraph said that 92.5% of crypto projects are scams.
Wow.
And it becomes, how do you spot the scams?
Right.
And then how do you invest for value? Whereas traditional stock market, you'd assume by the time someone lists on the stock market that the due diligence has been done. You know, they've been investigated by several different government agencies. So you know they're a legitimate company. And then you've just got to find the value ones from the bad ones. But crypto, it's a bit more difficult. And that's why we actually teach some processes around both stock selection and also crypto selection to make sure that people don't get burned.
Yeah. So you say, you know, again, you know, that the stocks and the bonds and things like that, that's already kind of that are being traded in the market. Those have kind of already been vetted and there's, you know, some backing behind it that we know of. Now with the crypto, how are you able to find out if crypto, the currencies that you're trying to get are scams versus the real deal?
We have a 4-step process, which out of time I won't go into here, but it's a very simple 4-step process. We actually have been using that for 6 years with our Bostoncoin portfolio. We've never lost money to a scam in 6 years.
Okay.
Touch wood, but I think we've got the process down pat. And it's very, very simple. I mean, the step one is checking out the founders, the CEO, CFO, whoever. And a lot of these things like Squid Coin, Squid Game Coin, Shibby Coin, and that sort of stuff, the founders are anonymous. So it's, two young 17-year-old kids in their mum's garage who make up this thing, and they don't want to have their lives ruined. Like, they're not going to tell you who they are because they're going to rip you off, and they don't want you to come chasing them. So if you've got an anonymous founder, that's a huge red flag.
Okay.
Imagine if they didn't tell you who the CEO was of Tesla or Apple or whatever. So checking those guys out, looking them up, because oftentimes they've got this beautiful page, they've got a beautiful smiling CEO and the secretary and whatever there, but those are just Google images, they're not real people. So if you take the time, I know you take 60 seconds to click through on the link or highlight the name and just right click and search them on Google, you'll find a LinkedIn profile. And, is this Bill Smith actually on LinkedIn, and does it match his photo, and is he working for the company that it says he is actually working for on the website? Like, that process takes 60 seconds.
Okay.
And that'll help you avoid at least 25% of the scams. Like in my first book, I laid out a 9-step protocol for choosing the best stocks. And with crypto, we've cut that down to only 4 steps. Because, I mean, you can't really look at a new project, you can't look at their revenue. Sometimes you can't even look at their project and things like that, because some cryptos provide a service, like a transfer service. Like Bitcoin is basically gold that you can email from one country to another. So there's no real product apart from the Bitcoin that you can email from one person to another. So it doesn't have all the steps of the stock selection, but there's a simple process. And as I say, we've avoided 100% of the scams. And people that we've taught this methodology to, at least you can avoid 90% of the scams, and you can buy some good value. And if you lose 100% of the money that you put into XYZ project, but you've got 4, 5, 6 other projects that have gone up 200%, 300%, up to 10,000%, 13,000% that we've made on some of our investments, then that evens out. And that's sort of par for the course with crypto. It's high risk, high return. And, for every one that's going to return 20,000%, you're going to find one that loses 100% of your money. This is why it's important to diversify in crypto as well as you do in stocks. Right.
Now, having an advisor like you or someone like you, how can I, if I'm looking, for a new advisor and I want to, besides the stocks and bonds and stuff, I do want to get into the crypto. How can I find out if, do you really know about crypto? Because I think sometimes people are going to say that they do when they really don't.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them, and unfortunately they have a huge advertising budget, and they're usually very loud and yelling and getting excited, saying, this is the coins you got to buy by midnight tonight to make you a billionaire and you'll have a private jet. They're all over YouTube. But then you look back at their history and say, what was this person doing 2 years ago? Were they living in their mum's basement flipping burgers? Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I used to do that. Sure. But would I now, as a bloke who's 50 years old, would I take the advice of a 19-year-old who has 12 months, experience in the industry? Hell no. When I first started in financial planning, I was allowed to advise people who had 30 to 50,000. And if I did it wrong, the company would go, okay, well, he's lost that little old lady's money, but we've just got to pay her back 30 to 50,000. That's okay. We can do that. And then the next year I was able to advise people with 100,000. And a few years later down the track, I was able to advise people with millions of dollars, but only after I'd been doing the job for 5 years very well. Right. So, you got to look at what these people have experience in, and some of them are just charlatans, and they're advising you to go and buy some coin that they've already got, which is why they're what we call shilling it or promoting it. Right. They want it to go up 10,000% because all their YouTube video watchers are going to go out and buy it, and then they're just going to do a run-up. So I'd look at, nobody has 10 or 20 years experience in crypto because Bitcoin only came out 13 years ago. Right. And, Ethereum only came out like 6 or 7 years ago. But if they've got a strong background in stock analysis, accounting or something like that, then maybe you could actually translate that experience and also look at what they've been doing. I mean, we've been running Bostoncoin for 6 years now. And in those 6 years, we've averaged 350% per year for 6 years in a row. we've actually outperformed Bitcoin for the last 3 years in a row.
Wow.
And that's because we do our homework, we diversify, and we actually have stocks in the portfolio of our crypto. So one of my big things, from day dot when I was doing stocks and shares is invest where you spend. And anybody who's watching this has got a pen in their hand, write that shit down. Invest where you spend. That will save you millions. So you think about before the pandemic, we were all doing our thing. When the pandemic hit, people started traveling less.
Mm-hmm.
So you were spending less money on airline travel. You're spending less money on rental cars, all right? Obviously, if you're not paying money to those companies are going to do poorly. So if you sold airline stocks and you sold Hertz rental cars at the start of the pandemic, you would have avoided losing millions when Hertz went broke and the airlines went down. People started working from home. So now you have to pay, $4 a month or whatever it is for a Zoom subscription. And you go, okay, if I'm paying money to the company, obviously I trust them, otherwise I wouldn't pay them. Same as I pay money to my car insurer or my bank or my whoever.
Right.
So if I'm starting to pay money to Zoom rather than going into the office, Zoom stock's going to do well. And if you'd sold Hertz and bought Zoom at the start of the pandemic, you would have made more than 1,000% and avoided losing 100%. So this is a philosophy. I first wrote about it in 2006 in my book, and it has stayed with us through plane crashes and pandemics and global financial crisis. If you're giving money to a company every month on your food, your fuel, your whatever you spend on, invest where you spend. And the same thing, this is how we first got started into crypto, is, we've got staff in Africa, Indonesia, Fiji, sort of all over the world. And paying them by Western Union or by money transfer or bank transfers was expensive. And someone said to me, hey, look at Bitcoin, you can send $1,000 and it costs like less than 50 cents to transfer it. And I was like, cool, new money transfer system, kind of like a magic PayPal.
Right.
So we started buying Bitcoin just to pay our staff. We didn't buy it as like, oh, we're going to sit on this and it's going to go up 1,000,000%. We just started using it. So people actually look at, not what's the next big thing, but what's actually solving problems, what's providing solutions. And even to the point of some of the best tips that I've ever got in the stock market are from my own children, because they come home and they say, Dad, everybody at school's got a Billabong backpack. I need to have $70 so I can buy a Billabong backpack. And I'd say, really? Everyone? Every single kid at your school has a Billabong backpack. They go, oh, well, all the cool kids do.
Right.
The lame kids don't.
Right.
But it's super cool. And like these things come and go out of fashion. Like Billabong's been around for 40 odd years, but there'll be another brand that comes up and takes over. And it might go out of fashion for about 10 years, like Hush Puppy shoes went out of fashion for about 10 or 15 years, and then they became cool again. Right. And when the kids start telling you this is what the cool kids are doing, you go, well, I'll look into that. And the Billabong backpack costs about $5 to make in a factory in China, and they sell it for $70. And I go, that's a good business model, right? 10 times your money or more. Right. So I can buy shares in Billabong, knowing that all the 15-year-old kids are out there buying these Billabong backpacks. And then it's a full 12 or 18 months before the company actually releases their earnings report to the market. So I'm in that stock a year before anybody actually knows that they're about to make a huge profit.
Right.
So follow the money, invest where you spend. It's the best advice I've ever received and I've ever given to anyone.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's, I was going to ask you what's some of the best advice you've ever been given, but that sounds like pretty good advice right there. And I'm definitely going to keep that for myself too. That's a great idea. I guess what are some of the challenges that you're facing right now?
Bloody Facebook, if I can say that. I think you're going to bleep out some of the words that I use, but that's just Australians,
Right.
Very mild swear words here. I don't want to even tell you what we call our best friends. But Facebook has been a big challenge because they banned crypto advertising like right from the start, in 2016, 2017. And there was rumors circulating they were going to release their own crypto, which is why they were banning everybody else, trying to control the market. And then of course, 12 or 18 months later, they're like, oh, we've got this Libra project, and nobody liked it. And they lost millions on that. And now we're going to change its name to Diem, and then we're going to change Facebook's name to Meta, because as if that's going to make us forget that you're a horrible corporation who does horrible things. But for the last, 6-7 years, for the life of Bostoncoin, we haven't been able to advertise on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. I don't know what the other things are. You can't do ads on basically any of these social medias except for Twitter. And so it's been a huge challenge because we've got a really wonderful project. We're the first diversified mutual crypto fund in the world. And obviously, when Vanguard came out with their first stock mutual fund, they could advertise and go, this is revolutionary. The ordinary man on the street can whack down $1,000 and have a diversified portfolio, just like the billionaires and the Rockefellers used to do, because they had huge amounts, they could build their own portfolio. So we've got a revolutionary project. We've got a fantastic methodology. We give away the secret sauce so you can do it at home if you don't want us to do it for you, but we haven't been able to advertise. So it's been a big challenge, but because we couldn't be the ad, we couldn't be the commercial, we decided to become the story. And so we write a lot of press releases and go, this is what's new, this is what we've been doing, this is what's changing in the marketplace. And we submit that to websites and blog sites all over the place and say, okay, people have got to find out about us. Maybe they'll read the news article rather than actually paying attention to the flashy ad.
So why is it that you can't advertise?
Because these guys, and Facebook wasn't saying we're going to crush the market because we want everyone to buy our Facebook coin. They were saying we're trying to protect people because up to 90% of crypto projects were scams. And we can petition them all we like and say, look, we've been going for 3 years. We're definitely not a scam. Here's all of our details. Here's our information. You look at the company, it's founded in Delaware and blah, blah, blah. But if a business has been going for 3, 4, 5 years, it's definitely not a scam, right? It's there for the long haul. But they just put a blanket grant. If you've got the word crypto, we're not going to advertise. And I go, cool. We respect that because we want to save people from scams as well. But you need to differentiate between, Bitcoin's been around 13, 14 years. Ethereum's been around 7 or 8 years. Bostoncoin's been around for 6, 7 years. Like, they're different to the project that just popped up last week.
Right. Wow. I think that there's definitely some censorship there that isn't very fair, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you got to differentiate. You can't just say there's no advertising at all for pillows because we don't trust the My Pillow guy. Like, you're crushing an entire industry to save people from one guy you don't like.
Right. So Jeremy, we've covered a lot of stuff, and it's like time has gone by like that. What have I not asked you that you wish I had? Yeah.
I've probably come across people who don't know me and haven't seen me before. I direct them to go to my YouTube channel. I've got like 400 YouTube videos because I sound like a bit of a capitalist because we focus more on the money and the stocks and the crypto and that sort of stuff. And that's, I guess, where I started because, I didn't have money as a kid and I wanted to have money. I wanted to have fast cars and toys and that sort of stuff. But my life really started for me after the age of 33. I made a lot of money in my 20s and my early 20s and late 20s when I was in financial planning and helped a lot of clients and got a lot of fancy toys and bought a big house and that sort of stuff. But I was spending all my time and my focus and my energy on work and money and accumulating more stuff. And when I was 33, I had a heart attack. And that's kind of young, like my dad's in his 80s and he hasn't had one yet. So it was like combination of stress, bad diet, because I was working long hours, you just have to have food on the go. Had some bad habits, obviously, and I wasn't paying attention to my health. I wasn't paying attention to my mental health. I wasn't paying attention to my relationship with my partner and my children. And lying on the operating table and going, shit, I've got all this money, but my relationships kind of suck because I'm never at home. I'm always working.
Right.
And what's the point of all this money when I'm lying on the operating table and the doctor's telling me I might have another heart attack in the next 6 to 12 months and I might be dead if I don't change my habits. So that was very transformative for me. And since then, that was 17 years ago now. I've always tried to balance my life like you balance your portfolio.
Right.
So I meditate every day. We were talking earlier about me having sunrise meditation.
Right.
So 1,500 consecutive days down at the beach watching the sun come up and meditating. I took months and months off work and spent time with lamas and meditators and all sorts of weird and wacky and wonderful people, balancing out the left and right brain, because there is this tendency to reward too much for all the work I do. Oh, I'm so busy at work, but no one's bragging about how they meditated. No one's bragging about how they spent time with their partner. No one's bragging about how much their kids look forward to them coming home.
Right.
And that's some of the things in our society that are really messed up. And I needed to have a heart attack at 33 for me to go, wake up, what the hell's going on? What do I really want to have as my legacy? Because I was given the warning I'd be dead in 12 months if I didn't change my life. So I changed my life radically. And even with all of our businesses ever since then, and with Bostoncoin and Trillionaire, we give away a lot of information. We give away a lot of money. We empower communities. We sponsor rescue dogs to retrain them as companion animals for people with disabilities. We help employ people with disabilities to get them into the community. We've sponsored over 200,000 kids in Africa that have an entrepreneurial education to learn English, because growing up in a poor country, if you speak the local language and you get a local education, you're going to be someone's gardener or someone's maid.
Right.
That's pretty well it. But if you can teach this kid English, not that English is the greatest language in the world, it's just the language of the internet that most people speak. Teach a kid English, put a $20 smartphone in their hand. They can start an online business. They can become entrepreneurial. No matter where you live in the world, the opportunity is endless now. So this is some of the stuff that we like to give back and really sort of balance things out, contribute to the world. And also from a selfish perspective, I mean, when I'm 106 and I'm having my next heart attack, the kid who's operating on me is probably going to be from one of these emerging nations, and if they can get an education, they can learn English and they can go to medical school, that's going to help me out. And let's face it, every time you help people out in the community, if there's less poverty in the community, there's going to be less crime. There's going to be less social unrest and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've seen. We've seen the best of people in the pandemic and we've seen the worst of people. Right. And a lot of it's because they've lost their purpose. They focused on only work and they couldn't go to work. Then they start to go crackerjacks temporarily. Yeah. Because they've got nothing else to do. They've got no other passions, no other hobbies, no other interests. And if their income has gone down, most people are only this far away from the poverty line and they don't have a month's income saved up in case they get furloughed. So, that's led to a great deal of social unrest. And if we can teach people how to trade stocks, if we can teach people how to trade crypto, we can teach people how to run a drop shipping business from home or something like that. I've had 14 startups, I think, in my life. Wow. It's always possible to do something no matter what the conditions are. I started my first business during the worst recession we'd had in 20 or 30 years. And this is like now, another 20, 30 years later, we're having a very bad recession. But there's always opportunity. There's huge opportunities in the marketplace. You just got to know where to look. And all you need these days is a smartphone, whereas 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have smartphones. It was a lot more difficult. Kids today are spoiled with their choice of, you can literally get a $20 smartphone from the post office or the corner store and you can start trading cryptocurrency. Right. Even if you've only got $5 or $10 that you borrowed from your mum. If you're smart enough and you do your research, you can turn $5 or $10 into thousands and thousands of dollars very quickly because the crypto market never sleeps. Right.
So Jeremy, I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of great ideas and have done a lot of homework and helped a lot of people. If our listeners like what they hear, how can they reach out to you, talk to you, maybe invest with you, but if not anything, learn from you?
Yeah. Well, as I say, we give away the secret sauce. So there's people out there who go, I don't want to deal with a fund manager. I want to do it myself. That's cool. So we created a not-for-profit site called Trillionaire.com. So it's crypto, C-R-Y with the millionaire smushed together. Okay. Trillionaire.com, we give away all the information for free. We show you how we do our crypto selection. We have published interviews, videos with CEOs of different projects. You go on there and you can get free crypto. You can earn free crypto, download wallets, and you get free stuff. So for people who want to do it themselves, Trillionaire.com. For people who say, I'm too busy with my life, I want someone else to do it for me, then they can go to bostontrading.co. So .co, not .com. bostontrading.co. If they join up there for the newsletter, we give a crypto newsletter every month. That's educational, and also give a copy of my book that actually shows you about the stock selection and when to buy stocks and shares and when to buy property and timing the market, a whole bunch of other things.
Right. Great. That's a lot to be given away. That's for sure.
Yeah, education, right? Like
Right.
you sit down with a school teacher, they're going to probably take up your entire afternoon telling you about everything under the sun. I might only talk to your audience once, so I want to give as much value as I can.
Right. I appreciate that. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So today our guest was Jeremy Britton, who's the CFO of Boston Trading. See you guys next week.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.